So here, in order to continue, let's look at the supplier on the other side. Let's look at supply. Supplier behavior, how firms make production decisions help explain how market establishes prices and quantities. Supply is the ability and willingness to sell specific quantities of a good at alternative prices in a given time period. This is the definition from chapter 3. And a firm supply, it's a competitive firm. They will adjust quantity supplied until marginal cost equals prices. So that's what we just discussed. And the marginal cost curve is the short-run supply curve for a competitive firm. And when supply shift, marginal cost will determine the supply decision of a firm. And anything that alter marginal cost will change supplier behavior. So if this shift to here, then we're going to change our production, right? And we talked about this idea of important influences or marginal cost and supply behavior. What are the influences that's going to shift the supply? Price of factors, inputs, technology, expectations. You remember those from last chapter? Talked about them in chapter 5. And then here, we're talking about the market supply, which is the total quantities of goods seller are willing to able to sell at alternative prices in a given time period, such as purpose. This is also the definition from chapter 3. And here, we've got here some examples. Firm A, firm B, firm C. And this is the total demand. Okay? So here, we've got the marginal cost first, marginal cost second, marginal cost third. If you add them up, they will make the supply curve. So what is a supply curve? Supply curve is a total of all marginal costs for all the businesses. And the market supply curve is the sum of all marginal costs curves of all the firms. So that's the power of marginal cost. Because you add them up, you get the entire market. Competitive market supply determinants, factors, prices. This is a slide again. Now, here is another important topic in perfect competition. The idea of entry and exit. Okay? The idea is to understand how competitive markets work, we have to focus on changes in equilibrium rather on static equilibrium. And this becomes important because the number of firms in a competitive industry is not fixed. How many mango people sell in the market today? How many people sell? There are many. Now, are they the same every day? There are a lot of people, they take their mango trees, they cut them out and they put instead fersik, right? There are some people, they have fersik, they remove them and they put in mangoes. So here we've got the idea of market entry and exit. So some businesses today, they work in mangoes. Tomorrow they don't work in mangoes, they work in fersik. Now, of course, in some businesses, let's say about mangoes and fersik, these are maybe the people when they walk in or out, it will take them like a season or a year, right? But let's say, talk about, for example, if you look at the market for airlines. Do you know how many airlines go to Dubai every day? Every month? Are they the same? No, they're not the same. Because for some companies, they find the market to Dubai very attractive. So they go to the market. So they call Dubai, we want to do 2 flights a week. And then next they call, we want 3 flights a week. And then maybe they say, you know what, we want only 1 flight a week. So when they do 1 or 2 or 3, they're actually adding supply or eliminating supply. So there are more people players or less number of players. So you see, for example, during Hajj and Umrah, we've got this huge traffic, very high demand for airports like Jeddah or Medina, right? While in some other seasons, maybe there's like very small number of flights going there. So here we've got this equilibrium that is continuously changing, and businesses, they have to determine, should I go there or I shouldn't go there? So we start to see here the industry entry and exit is a driving force affecting market equilibrium. So if it is profitable to go to Dubai, we go. If it's not profitable, we stop. Do you see? Entry. What's entry? Entry is one firm enter the market, they find it profitable, and there's an economic profit. Why will you go to Dubai? Because there's an economic profit. Probably it will cost you 4 and you sell it for 5. You see, so you can gain $1 there, right? That's why you're going. And more firms will start to enter the industry, and the market supply curve will start to shift to the right, and then the prices will start to decrease. So more and more people go to Dubai. This will lower the prices because of the competition, and economic profit starts to decrease until we reach 0 economic profits. And then once you reach 0 economic profits, if the businesses, they are making 5 and they are losing 5, and they are on a zero economic profit, they will be there. But once they start to lose, they will go exit. So here we start to have this exit at the end. Industry output increases and prices fall when firms enter to the industry. So the tendency towards zero economic profit. So this is an important topic in economics, the idea of zero economic profit. Once businesses find zero economic profits, then they will either stay or exit. You see? But no one is going to join. And if we have more than a zero economic profit, people still join in. Do you guys remember telecommunication stores, like every other store in a street, like 10 years ago? Like everyone was doing this, telecommunication mobile phones. And then the market was full of mobile phone sellers until the economic profit started to reach zero and negative, and then we started them to close. The same thing with internet. We start to see like internet shop, and then economic profit started to reach zero, and then we started them, they close one after another and after another. Do you see? What is opening these days? Now there's a high economic profit in these like power companies. Like everywhere there's like a power company here. They have 2 in their neighborhood. Do you see already? Because there's an economic profit. And then we will see market entry until economic profit reaches zero, and then they will start to lose, and some will stay if they are okay with the zero economic profits. New firms will continue to enter as long as there's profits, and once prices fall to the level of minimum average costs, all economic profits will disappear. And this is entry is the forcing driving down market prices, and then price falls until there is no economic profit. At that point, average total cost is at its minimum. Now, what's the opposite than market entry is this market exit. Remember in Yemen, when you open a business that's very profitable, everyone joins. That's not in Yemen, by the way. It's an economic theory. It happens all over the world. Anyone making profits, economic profit, people come next to compete. You see, that's the nature of economics. Exit. Exit is when they start to lose and costs is less, and firms start to exit when profit opportunities looks better elsewhere. So they start to see economic profit in something else, so people jump to this something else. And then firms will leave the industry if prices fall below the average cost. And as firms exit the industry, the market supply curve shifts back to the left, and then it generates maybe more profit as other people exit. That's why we've got some businesses, they like to, this is like one of the, we'll talk more about it in how business works is, remember when you have like one of these big companies, they come in, Qatari Airlines did this. They went to Europe, and Qatari Airlines, they go first class, like their economy class is first class, compared with Lufthansa. So if they go, they drop the prices. Some of the companies in Europe, they close. They can't compete, you see, with this. And then Qataria started, they want to operate from Frankfurt to Zurich to Luxembourg to London. So, they are now competing with that. So here, it becomes a very tense competition to the point that some other businesses start to exit. You see, so these businesses, they don't go. So, if you want to compete market to Dubai, European, they can't compete. Because Emirates, Qatari Airlines, and the Gulf, they really capture that market, and they do not allow competition. And then you start to see, travel between New York and Shanghai. You see Qatari, Emirates, and they're controlling this market. So we start to see here some of the business, reactions. For example, in Europe, Lufthansa, they went to the European Union and said, "Hey, look, Qatari Airlines, they're doing unfair competition." Maybe Leila, can you tell us more about this? Are you aware of any of these stories? Where they no?
Well, basically, for example, Qatar allows certain tax cuts for Qatari Airlines or grants them a subsidy, so that's fair.
It becomes unfair competition, exactly. So it becomes a legal problem. So Lufthansa, they go to the courts in Europe and they say, "Hey, look, Qatari Airlines, they don't pay prices of oil at international price. They get subsidy from their government. They don't pay taxes, and they are not meeting a fair competition with us. So you European government, you have to protect us against those. They're trying to drive us out of the business." And then the American Aviation Association, they put a new law. If you're an airline and you're coming, you have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 conditions in order to come to our airports. This will make it more expensive for foreign companies to come. And remember, Trump, he decided to put a wall in front of Mexico so that there is no competition to come from there. So here is the idea of market exit. So some businesses, they go, they have to exit the market and prices rise until there is no economic losses. At that point, average total cost is at a minimum. And then we start to see the equilibrium. The existence of a profit in a competition industry induces entry. And if there is loss, then people induce to go out. Now, what happens in the long run? In the long run, prices will equal minimum average total cost. So in the long run, the minimum average total cost will reach the prices, will reach the marginal cost, and economic profit become eliminated. And then, as long as it's easy for existing producers to expand production or for new firms to enter an industry, economic profits will not last long. So you see some businesses that are zero economic. Why not a lot of people want to work in, let's say, potato business? Because it's a zero economic profit, you see. So you basically, whatever it costs you, that's why we got businesses that are trying to add value. Like Yemeni businesses, they're trying to export their tomatoes and mangoes to the Saudi market. The prices here, they can produce it for, prices there are better, so it's good to export over there. But at the same time, the local producers in the Gulf, they're competing with the Yemeni mangoes and tomatoes. They start to go by increasing their quality or going into a monopolistic competition more. And then we've got here low barriers to entry. So here, what are the barriers to entry? What will make businesses not be able to enter? That's when we've got the idea of a patent. We talked about patents. We said government may get a patent so that people can't compete with us. Like the pill, if I make the pill for cancer, then I have a patent or a copyright, so people cannot start to do the same business. And here we've got some characteristics of this competitive markets. Many firms, identical products, low entry, and then marginal cost equals profit, zero economic profit, perfect information. Remember the idea of perfect information? Perfect information where everyone knows. Okay, and we talked about the guy who walk in, at the beginning of the market so that people don't know the prices. And then we talked about the virtue of competition. Market will help signal what should and shouldn't be produced. Market sends signals which reallocate resources to others. Do you know what we mean by signals? There's always a signal, okay? So you see, once you see people go out, then it's economic profit zero. The relentless profit squeeze. The idea here is prices. There's always a pressure on prices. It's a fundamental characteristics of competition. Every time there's competition, people, they compete on prices. You see, and this is one of the good things about perfect competitions. Market mechanism, it works best in a competitive market. Market mechanism, the use of market prices and sales to signal desired outputs. So once we start to see discounts, we know that there's an economic profit and people are trying to get the customers. And once we see that there's an increases in prices, there's a sign that there is a need for increasing prices, otherwise exit. High profits in a particular industry will indicate that consumers want a different mix of outputs. Now here, what this means is, if there is a big profit, let's say there's a big profit in mangoes, what does that tell us? It tells us that people want more mangoes. You see, there's big profit in qat. It tells us that people want more qat. You see, so these prices, they do a lot of magic things about the market, of what's going on, who enters, who exits. More firms enter to the business. Consumers get their desired mix of outputs. Remember, if your income is 50,000 riyal and you take half of it and you spend it on qat, then it is very obvious that we need to have this number of many sellers and producers of qat in order to compensate for this, what we call desired mix of outputs, what people want to consume. And there they get more of the goods that the people desire at lower prices. And then we've got the idea of maximum efficiency. That's when there's a pressure on prices. It forces suppliers to produce at the least possible cost. So more and more need for mangoes, and then people try to use the best way to lower their cost so that they can produce the maximum efficiency. And society will get the most it can from available scarce resources. So with a perfect competition, the economy as a whole become very happy because we get the best out of our scarce resources. Why? Because we are operating on the lowest price and for the highest amount of output for the least average cost. And that's like the best of all possible worlds. Do you guys love competition? Okay, so this competition is like great for society as a general. And now this is like a summary of zero economic profits. We said all economic profits are eliminated at the limit of the competitive processes. People compete, then we reach zero. There's this idea of a social value of losses. Economic losses are a signal to producers that they are not using society's scarce resources in the best way. So here, when businesses lose, then we know that the society is not getting the best. Okay, so there is a better way, and that's when the market starts to change. And the policy perspective. You know what we mean by policy perspective? If you're the government, what should you think? Competitive market present a strong argument for laissez-faire. Remember, I told you this book is after this neoliberalism where let the market do the work. Don't control, don't subsidize electricity, don't try to put a maximum for rent, don't put a minimum wage. No, let the market control. And so that's what we learned. Government should promote competition because markets do better job of allocating resources. That's basically the Trump, he's coming from this school that says, you know what, don't control. Just let the market and it will work correctly. And this means you're keeping market open, accessible to new entrants. But when it comes to external or international trade, Trump comes on the opposite side and he said, raise the walls, we don't want to trade with other people. Now, of course, if you talk to the author, what he thinks about this, 20% tax on Mexican products and goods to the US and the wall, he will say this is absolutely crazy and it doesn't help the society and it's not good at all. But some people, they've got this, there's an economic theory, but there's also a political theory, which is, people vote for me because I will stop the jobs to go to Mexico. I will bring them to you. So people say, yeah, vote. And remember what happened when people voted for the person who says minimum wage 8. Remember what happened. They didn't get the job at the end. And that's the end of this chapter 6. Okay. So now we finished the half of today's story, which is perfect competition. Now let's look at the other half.